Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Heretical Musings with the Patriarch himself. Not that he muses heretically, he muses about heretical topics. No, wait, that's not right either. Anyway, hi, I'm Andrew Greenberg. Up there, my upstairs neighbor is.
Bill Bridges. Hi guys, how you doing?
Good to have you all
Hi,
with us today.
patriarch beard I'm working on.
If you can't hear us well, let us know. If you can hear us well, don't let us know. I mean, let us know, whatever. Uh, We are here to talk about Fading Suns, game development, rules, aliens, all the things we love the best. But Bill, you told me that there's some new stuff happening with Fading Suns, some new items and the like, didn't you?
Well, what we got is some art show off this time around because art's coming in.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of that, and you keep talking and tell folks what we're seeing.
All right, just trying to adjust my screen here. All right, what we're seeing here is one of the Dramatis Personae from the play kit. These are pre-generated characters, can be used as NPCs or players. Oh, and this is an Anunnaki gargoyle and a crew working on it. Gee, it looks kind of familiar. This one is titled No Collusion, and this is guilds, priests arguing among each other. And this one here is, let's see, oh, that is Saint Hadara of Madoc, old matriarch Hadara. And now we're back to this one. So those four pieces are brand new for folks. I don't think we've released those yet. And we'll hopefully be showing off even more as time passes. And we get more stuff. Next episode of Heretical Musings, you'll see some.
Gorgeous
And
pieces.
yeah, I wish I knew the artists' names right now. I'll try to get those and tell you who they were next time.
Was that your character doing the burning?
It's anybody's Inquisitor.
So I think that Looters was done by Carl Hassler. Does that sound familiar?
I don't know. Did I give you the list
I
there? I
think
might have.
Collusion was
I've
done
lost it.
by Nathaniel Parks.
Awesome.
I think the aid was done by Isa Backhaus. And I don't know who did Saint Hadara. Sorry, I'm just looking at tags on the art files I have
Cool.
here.
Nice.
So that's a
Yeah,
guess. Good
those
looking
are
stuff.
that piece with the looting. Those are Antifa looters. Taken
Stop
out an
looting the
early.
Antifa.
Yep, and Inquisitors are there to stop them.
They're Antifaviana?
Yeah, everybody is, aren't they? Especially the Invisible Path.
Hey, welcome to the stream, Chainsaw Gothic, Admiral Nelson. Glad you like the art. Same with you, Horatio X. We have Admiral Nelson and Horatio Hornblower in
Oh,
the chat, so we really should be doing probably a Noble Armada today.
yes,
But
Pico.
be that as it may, uh, Admiral Nelson is ready to go to war with Horatio. All right. So, Bill, I understand you've been collecting some questions about the Fading
Yep,
Suns.
yep. We've got some folks on Facebook and elsewhere been posting up some questions for us to answer. This time around was supposed to be last time, but we're here now. All right, let me start here with Martin Siroy. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. He has three questions. The first one is, it's mentioned in previous source books that Quebec City and New York City were fighting for the seat of the Archbishopric of North America. Is that question resolved? What was the backlash? I think that one's for you, Andrew. But it's definitely pre-reflective from an era of old Holy Terra's history that most people don't remember.
Yep. I'm sure this was when Poughkeepsie ended up taking it.
There you go. I think it references a certain plague that was once on Earth. That when Patriarch Palamedes set up the Holy See on Holy Terra, the celestial sun burned them all out. So there were no more after that.
You sure it wasn't when the true holy capital of Atlanta sunk beneath the waves, became the lost city of Atlanta?
It could have been that one during the time when the seas rose and civilizations collapsed and barbarians tread upon the earth. In other words, next year. Okay. Number 2, as a kind of follow-up question to the first one, will there be tips for more political campaigns and examples of how all three orders, quote-unquote, play the game? Yes, the answer is. And that's the Intrigues and Escapades source book that was part of the first wave. It will be coming out sometime when all the rest of them are, which one of the other questions is, when are the books coming? Hopefully I'll be able to tell you that soon. Not sure, but hopefully this new art will show you that things are happening, things are going. Nobody wants these more than me. But yes, Intrigues and Escapades, besides giving you some pre-made dramas to run, has some chapters that tell you all about how nobles, guilds, and priests play the game of intrigue. For instance, nobles are raised from birth to the grave to intrigue at every step along the way. Priests also, and of course, guilders have to figure out how to win the game of life. So yeah, Intrigues and Escapades. Check it out. Question number 3. How does the church preserve the religious legacy of Earth? What are the religious factions debating this subject? Well, if he means all the pre-reflective era, it's mainly an academic issue. A lot of people aren't that familiar with things that went on before the prophet, walked among the stars. And so it's mainly something for the chart of phylaxes to argue over on all their own little theories about which ones actually had some sort of piece or fragment of the truth before it was fully revealed under Zebulon. So, and of course, as we get into Voldrock space, we'll find that they've preserved some legacies that have been forgotten in the known world. All right, on to Matthew Faradu. His questions. 1, is there a limit to the VP well? I think a limit would add a kind of pancreas element to the drama, but I don't know how it could be done. Actually, there is no limit, because the VP well is simply where you get the victory points that are needed for the gameplay. And if they ever ran out, then people wouldn't be able to do anything. So really, it's just individuals have limits on their caches and their banks, but and game and the NPCs also to a certain degree. But the well itself is infinite, just like the Pancreator's Grace. 2, on the same theme, I really love the idea of the troop coffer. Is there any way to make it even more present in the game to further explore the mise en abîme? I'm not sure, it's in French. You'll have to tell us what that is, Matthew, at some point. Between the game and the metagame. Yeah, I'm sure there will be. And I would love to hear people's ideas on this as they actually get around to playing the game. These are the sorts of things that are really best conceived through experience and gameplay and as different people tackle their own play styles.
And this is something Bill and I have discussed a little bit early on in design. Ways for everybody to support each other. That's part of where that troop coffer came from, essentially. How are we best able to support one another? We love solo games. We think the troop play has really always been, in many ways, the heart of role playing, and to inspire that sort of interaction. Always invaluable. It's great to have your own schemes and plots going back and forth, sometimes competing, but still having to rely on each other so integrally.
Yep. And number 3, what advices could you give to convert old characters to the new system? I would say that really do not sweat the small details. I know that, you could probably sit down and figure out, okay, if my character had X many experience points, how can I convert those into figuring out what level he is based on spending for skills and characteristics? I say don't sweat it. Your character's traits for their skills and characteristics, they translate over pretty straight. I mean, yes, there's some new characteristics that don't work exactly well and stuff, but just take the highest of whatever. Like if he's got a high passion, throw that into presence. Got a high calm, throw that into will or faith, whichever one you prefer, and so on. And then just kind of get a rough idea of level based on how long you guys have been playing the game and so on. And and just do that. Don't sweat it too much. One of the main reasons for levels rather than points, beyond the fact that we are victory points, and I didn't want to have a whole separate type of point, was if the victory point bank was bought through points, everybody would buy that instead of everything else. they would feel the pressure to keep raising their bank rather than putting in the points into their skills and their characteristics. And by having an even level up, you take that away, so then they get to choose what they want. All
One
right,
thing that I
onward.
like with the
Yep.
new rules are capabilities, which mean that things that we didn't even necessarily define well in the old game. Well, do I have to have different language skills for each language, etc.? Now it's just a capability. You can say my character knows this language, there it is, knows this culture, there it is, and not having to worry about the roles to go with it. So that's another way to flesh out some of those original characters and make them feel more honest to the setting. They did know these things. It's a capability. It wasn't a dice roll.
Right.
All right.
Okay, cool. Juan Casanova asks, is the previous background on Vow and Symbiote still valid in the new edition, or is it going to be revamped? Yes, it is still valid. All the meta plot, all the materials on the dramas and the source books. Obviously, though, the rules will be changed slightly when we get around to updating those. But again, there is some parity between older editions of Fading Suns and the new, in that the dice mechanic is the same and the skills and characteristics are added together to get your goal number, etc., etc. It's just what you do with your victory points is very different.
Hey, I want to shout out to Horatio for thanks for the definition and pronunciation of Mithon Abim.
There we go.
Which I should be doing this OBS stream right now. I should have an image of Bill inside an image of Bill and inside an image of Bill. But
infinite regressions.
There we go. Be that as it may. Hey there, Phantom of Truth. Welcome for joining us. All right, sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
Another question. What about Rinpoche? Any developments there? Is it the world where the prophet was attacked by the devil touch? Rinpoche is still a world on a night road. It's still not widely known. We may develop stuff about it later, but there haven't been any major dramatic developments. As far as we know, the gate hasn't closed, but very, very few people know about it, and very, very few people have jump routes there.
I think that's an important point for the entire jump web now. We've gotten this much more defined jump web available to players that they didn't used to have. That doesn't mean they get a jump key to these places. It just means that the Emperor and the Questing Knights now know that these are the links and that somebody somewhere has a key. They might have opened for a Questing Knight. The Questing Knight went through, came back, reported, and then it got locked again. That key might have been a one use even and no longer effective for whatever reason. It is up to the GM to decide which of these routes are active and how active. It might be one person with that key charging a huge amount to go through it at all or not letting anyone else go whatsoever. That's kind of the situation with Ivor, where the church is keeping that stranglehold on who can get in there other than the PCs who sneak through without them knowing. So,
right.
Yeah, that whole route, what is available to whom, is really up to the GM. And it's not something we want to define at this point. Yes, known worlds you get too easily between. Same with the main Vol'drak worlds, but everything else. And can you get to Frost or Fingersfold easily? Good question. Maybe that's negotiations between the PCs and Vol'drak.
Right. And the other thing about Rinpoche is it's also possible it dropped out slightly due to data drift, and that the one group who might have had the proper data for that jump key just wasn't giving them out for a while, to even know that any of their other spy and secret allies. So who knows? As to whether it was the world where the prophet was attacked by the devil touch, maybe. Anybody's curious, Rinpoche was, I believe it was Weird Places where we introduced that world.
I had that here. I had my whole aliens and devil
made using modern technology.
I won't tell you while I just look at aliens and devil tree, but
yeah. Jump keys are a little complex. They use a lot of data, and I think it's probably possible. Well, not really. As you'll see in the Charioteers Guild Imperial Dossier, which we'll get eventually, there's information about jump keys and how one of the reasons you don't want to go stealing them and trying to copy them, because they've all got bombs in them.
Yeah. It's not that they're impossible to make. It's that you're going to get in a lot of trouble if the Charioteers ever find out you did.
Yep. And if you start tampering with it, boom. All right, let's go on. Roman Zoran asks, one, when will the books be available? Hopefully, we'll have that answer soon. Art is coming, as you can see in this wonderful slideshow that's going off to the side, and we'll keep showing off more, and we'll get them hopefully soon. Same for a second question about PDFs, which will obviously be available a little bit before the actual books are shipped. Will there be finally a War in the Heavens 3? And as far as I am concerned, yes, there will. There are certain books I need to get out of the way first. I think I talked about this in last week's Ulysses World live stream, which you should be able to find on the archives here on the Twitch channel. But yeah, I first need to. We got to delve a little further into Voldrock space and some of the mysteries going on there, and then touch on some psychics and psychic powers, and then we'll be ready to dip our toe into the world of the Anunnaki. What are your biggest hopes as creators for this new edition? That everybody in the world buys it and starts playing Fading Suns. What about you, Andrew?
Actually, my greatest hope for it is that they play it. I hope they buy it. Is that they play it, but we start hearing a lot more of their stories of what they've created. There's already been a few of those popping up in the Facebook group, and that's what I'm enjoying reading the most. So yeah, as you do your campaigns, please tell us about your characters, and more importantly, the campaigns. I love that in the Facebook group. I love that elsewhere. So, talking to some of our fans, one of our fans right now about a background he's come up with for one of his characters. A lot of fun stuff. A lot of stuff that we created, but a lot of stuff that's coming out of their own head. So
sweet. And then, will there be a major campaign or arching plot line? I do hope so. I do certainly have one in my head. It's a matter of getting War in the Heavens done first, though. So it's all these dominoes that have to be placed first before we can knock them all over. All right, Sean Hansen asks, again, a question about the books, but, we'll see. Same thing with physical rewards. What is earmarked for Wave 2 for our next wave of releases content-wise? And again, we talked about some of this on Ulysses World, but we're working into Voldrock space next because there are some mysteries there we really have to start working on. It's also where Alexius is moving into, and the rest of the known worlds are following, and some trying to get ahead of it. So we'll be revisiting the Voldrock and the Runecasters and all that. And we'll be touching on some of the known worlds groups that are in the forefront of moving into that space. That is the Charioteers Guild and Brothers Battle. And we'll have some new dramas and stuff too, and all sorts of other cool stuff. How successful will each wave have to be to ensure funding? I'm not sure exactly, but hopefully you will all tell everyone about these books and these crowdfundings we do so that we can keep doing Fading Suns and that we can get to War in the Heavens and all these other books we want to do.
Well, let's touch on that a little bit. You and I don't have the answer to this question, but for the first one, it was a $20,000 ask, or 20,000, sorry, euro. Apologies, real money, not that fake U.S. stuff. 20,000 euro ask, and it generated 180,000 euro, something like that. So, I think something like that is a good look at how these will be. Generally, the first rollout is the more expensive one, getting everything going. But
yeah, that's where all the big books are.
And keep in mind also all those cool stretch goals that can come out of it as well.
Admiral Nelson asks, who is the saint represented in the stained glass art here? That is Saint Hodari, the miraculous. She was a matriarch of the church and was from Madoc. Let's see if I can bring up her listing. Yeah, in the Game Master book, under Chapter 2, she is the patron of that chapter, Saint Hodari the Miraculous. And as Charioteer Captain Zelina Hamid Sandor's The Pilgrim's Path, How to Read the Mega Gospels, the quote comes, Hail Hodari, holiest of us all. Pilgrim, it is to Hodari we pray when we seek miracles. She was the matriarch of the church in her day, but refused to stay cloistered in Holy Terra's cathedrals. She traveled the known worlds instead, healing and helping however she could. And so, yeah, there's a lot more about her. And she bears the fish hook of deliverance, a simple item from her homeworld of Maddox, said to convert all who touch it. She is depicted with one foot in the crashing wave of a Maddox beach and the other among the stars, standing with an menhir behind her, which serves to as a reminder of her place of martyrdom on Bannockburn amidst the ruins. She is said to open and protect the portals between this world and the dimensions of the Anunnaki.
You know, Bill, an interesting upcoming Heretical Musings could be just discussions of all the art. Who's who, what's what. So I'm going to transition really quickly so folks can see that character book art one more time, which I think has some lovely pieces. I mean, that's just such an evocative cover piece. Do you want to talk about any of these characters in particular?
I'd have to go back and look at my art notes, and for those, I might want to reserve that for next time,
All
where I
right.
can pull
Well,
up all the
let's
notes.
think about that for an
But you
upcoming.
can see their emblems, which will tell you what like that dude down there, I think is a Reeve, the guy with the little cup and the gauntlets, and so on. So yeah, I can't see it that well in the screen I've got up, but yeah, I'd have to bring up my art notes.
All right. Well, let's think about that for an upcoming one. We're back to the slideshow now.
Yeah. All right, I got some more questions here. One is we've already come to that. Are plans to officially bring ship deck plans into Fading Suns? That is actually one of the things for the next wave we're hoping to do with the move into the new frontiers, is give you some deck plans for some new ships. Now, the game Noble Armada touched on a lot of the military ships for all the houses. But there's a plethora of civilian type ships. A lot of them tend to be unique. Some of them, are still somewhat manufactured, but they tend to be rather different. They don't tend to be as form fitted as those military fleets.
And
So we'll be getting those.
Even in the military fleets, while there is some standardization, they have a plethora of types that they use just because still that old Second Republic tech is still better than anything they make today. So they'll fly whatever Second Republic junker they can get over the brand new thing that they create today.
Yeah, we hope to be giving you some deck plans for some explorers, raiders, escorts, and freighters, and more.
But this is always a fun thing to just draw up on your own, and you never have to feel like you're limited to hours because there are so many. Whatever freaky looking ship you want to do, feel free to create it.
Absolutely. All right, Matthew Faraday has another question. Oh, it's rate of fire, the rate of fire for guns in games, and I actually answered that on Facebook already, and it was kind of left out. There's a little sidebar on burst fire weapons, and I left out what to do with the ones that have a rate of fire of 2 or 3, like some pistols. And so I've gone ahead and was able to squeeze those into those chapters, so we have added them, and they're basically skill maneuvers. So instead of like taking 2 shots at someone, you do a skill maneuver called 2 shots, where you fire 2 shots. And that gives you like -1 goal, but +1 damage. 3 shots, -2 goal, +2 damage, but you're hindmost in initiative. And there are certain other maneuvers, specialty ones, that allow you to use that rate of fire in other ways, such as for the marksmanship perk at the gunslinger level. You can perform a second shot as a bonus primary action. And what you've done is you've done an influence attack on somebody, and basically the victory or the impact you've had in that helps you out with that second shot. And Matthew also asks, what about the Chowkey? They're not covered in the faction book. Because they're not officially recognized yet. There are some Chowkey on Ivor, which is one of the reasons that world is so embargoed at the moment. Because boy, the Huzat do not want to see them recognized as true Chowkey. Right now, their official line is these guys are just pretenders trying to take the Huzat stuff. But who knows? We'll see what happens with them. Chris Cherniak. Questing Knights Traveling the Known Worlds was the default style of previous editions. What's the default style in the latest edition? What other adjacent types of campaigns could be run? I think the default style in the new one is that you're building a troop that's usually led by a noble, and it could be a questing knight, and everybody else could be imperial cohorts and such. Or it could just be that your nobles, going around to different courts and doing all sorts of diplomatic things, whichever way you want to sort of play it. But certainly the questing knight imperial cohort is the best sort of way to get into a more adventurous campaign where you're exploring and getting into more dangerous territory. And so in the world of Hargard, that's probably the most likely reason a lot of known worlders go there. But you could go there as a merchant caravan too, or you can go there as a priestly mission trying to convert the heathen Voldrak over to the Universal Church and so forth. As we get into the next books in the New Frontiers, certainly the questing knights have certain advantages in that they're all about that. Their whole organization is there to help them do that and give them access to ships and such.
Well, let's touch on this a little more, because for many players in the original Fading Suns first and second edition, the real focus was on rebuilding, reconnecting humanity, rebuilding what had been torn down, spreading the light of the phoenix throughout the worlds, etc. Now, certainly what I'm seeing in a lot of the play tests is a lot more is about the clash of cultures. So that the Empire has gotten kind of solid. It's got its feet on the ground, many grounds, but it's there. But now is the clash of cultures, not just with the Foldrock, but with trying to dig into the lost worlds, digging into those parts of humanity that haven't really been connected. And that's what I think is going to be one of the funnest parts about this latest edition. And kind of what we're touching on with aliens today. What is human? What is normal? What's abnormal? What are the cultural perspectives and so forth? And how can GMs have a lot of fun with that? And maybe the players too, but mostly the GMs.
Speaking of GMs, Chris's next question is, does the new rule set support improvisational GMing, basically not having to look up a lot of stuff that I did not prep for? And I believe it does. Now, we do go into a lot of detail on rules, but it's really just there if you don't want to make them up. There's no reason you can't just be doing what we did in other editions, which is just make up on the fly. Use this skill plus this characteristic to get X, Y, and Z done. Now, in the book, we give you numerous examples of different skill maneuvers, different ways that can be done, and so on. But yeah, you can certainly improvise your way around all that kind of stuff. I just feel that's a little bit of a more advanced GMing thing for people who've been role playing for a while and are a lot more comfortable making those kind of calls. So I felt that this new edition should have a bit more of a baseline so people know what to fall back on and so forth. Now, I do think that some of the perks are best, if you try to keep to those as much as possible, because we did have some sense of reasonable balance in them, but, you don't got to get too far into that. What do you think is the best way to introduce new players to the universe of Fading Suns without overwhelming them? Well, I think the best way is, again, what we just talked about, is have them be a troop of questing knights and cohorts who have been sent to Hargard to try to deal with the insurrection against Alexius, now that he claims that world. And the thing about Hargard, and when you're dealing with a Voldrak, is their tech level tends to be a bit lower across the board, and the tech they have, it's more looted, so it's definitely much more of a hodgepodge, and you're not talking about a lot of stable industries per se. And so it's a little bit easier for players who are used to fantasy role-playing games to drop into that environment, because it looks a lot like your standard sort of fantasy role-playing game, because you're going around to hamlets and villages and steadings and stuff. It's just that every now and then that Voldrak Thane you're talking to might have a cyber leg or arm instead of a magic sword.
And my favorite way with the earlier Fading Suns, this is first edition. I wish I'd thought of this. One of our players came up with this. They basically had the players just play what seemed like a very generic fantasy game. Started out very generic Middle Ages, and then suddenly the spaceship landed. And that's when they learned they were playing Fading Suns. I've always loved that intro to it. But this is something I'm dealing right now with the campaign I'm running, where only one of the players is really versed in the Fading Suns, and the others have asked to come in kind of as aliens. They're not playing aliens, but to be in a situation where their characters don't know what's going on. Therefore, yes, they're known worlders on Hargard dealing with culture that's not used to theirs, and I can start feeding them information about their own backgrounds at the same time they're exploring a setting that is unfamiliar to their characters and making those sort of mistakes honestly instead of making mistakes you then have to correct. Oh no, let's backtrack and fix something your character would have known not to have done that. So yes,
Right.
plumping him into what is still an alien situation, I think works well. And you can do this even within the known worlds. I used to love starting games on Pandemonium because Pandemonium was just a mess. And anything you knew from any other planet did not apply on
It
Pandemonium.
still is.
Yeah, it is still a mess. So it's still a great setting for it. Just throw the characters into that. It's crazy. They can get grounded in it. They can start learning about the Kados and other groups like that, and slowly expand out to other worlds from there. So yeah, wherever the characters wouldn't have the most information, and the characters can make honest mistakes, have fun with that.
Right. Someone compared what you were talking about to Paul Anderson's The High Crusade, and yeah, that's a good example.
You can compare anything I'm saying to Paul Anderson, and I'll be appreciative.
All right, moving on here. Let's see. Oh, Admiral Nelson, who's here? He's got a question. Table contents and the manuscript PDFs are broken. I'm not sure what the table of contents are because I don't think they had them in the PDFs we sent out. They were just a compilation of pretty much the Word files going up into there. So if there was a table of contents, it might have been auto-generated. But yeah, I mean, whatever the final books are definitely going to be have a good table of contents and hopefully index.
Admiral Nelson, love that example. Always love PCs being shot out into space, no matter what.
Nice. The PDF plan structure, not the T. I'm not sure what he means by plan structure, but
I'll pull them up myself and take a look.
yeah, I mean they're pretty much just an order of the chapters. So you get the introduction, chapter 1, and chapter 2 after, and so on. They flow together. Yeah, it's not ideal in the sense, but yeah,
So I
it's
usually
just the
follow
text.
them through the bookmarks. Is that how you do it with your PDFs, Admiral Nelson?
No, I don't know. Maybe that's what he's talking about. But I'm going to move on here and
That seems more fun. That's a nice. I've been using the bookmarks to maneuver through the PDFs, and that's worked out
yeah.
pretty well. So if you're using
Well,
another
see,
way, let me
part
know.
of the thing with me is I know what's in them, so I just jump to the section. I think I know where it is, so I'm not. To me, it's all new. The idea of having to look through them and not know where everything is. So, whoops. Do.
Here, let me
Any
real quick, Bill. I'll
what?
pull up the. Let me see if I can pull that PDF.
Oh yeah,
up
he means bookmarks. That's what he's
Oh, the
clearing.
bookmarks.
Yeah, I don't use them, so I haven't looked at them. I'll have to take a look at those and see if we can
Let me try and do that.
do something with that. Yeah, I never use those things. So, oops.
Oh dear, I'd have to make that a JPEG. Can't pull a PDF into my OBS.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see if there's anything we can do
While
about it.
Bill's
Part of it
talking,
depends
I'll go
on.
ahead and see if I can make a JPEG out of what I have here, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
No, I can do a screen cap. I will try it. Bill will keep talking, and I'll see if I can get this working.
Okay, another question. Any recommendations for GMs who intend to send their PCs on a lost world, i.e., things which can make the trip memorable? Well, yeah, certainly what Andrew was just saying. Make it very different and very weird. Again, this next some books will be getting back into that frontier of Voldrock worlds, and how much room we'll have to get into all the other lost worlds we've introduced before. I'm not sure yet, but it really just it's going to be on a case by case basis because each world has different and why it's been lost, and if they've been a night road for a while, in other words, have had slight contact with the known worlds versus those who've had none whatsoever. All the ones that were listed in Star Crusade 2 have had minimal contact with the known worlds. A lot of known worlds don't even know they exist. And the questing knights who do, they haven't been going there in numbers, so it's really just individual reports that have been coming back.
All right, I see what
So
Admiral
really,
Nelson's talking about now. I'm going to transition over to the PDF of the character book
all right.
manuscript. And it's manuscript. Manuscript. Don't scrap this book yet, please. Um, so I've been using these. You're right. The way they've defined these, it's not just chapter one, chapter two, etc. There's a ton of different bookmarks through here.
Yeah, that's auto-generated stuff is the thing. So
But I,
it's basically taking the headlines and anything that was done with a header and throwing it in. So it hasn't been edited and stuff. It was just done really quick. So if it has a header like Friar Perks, it's gonna show up in that thing, and I'm not sure what to do about that without taking a lot of time and effort because I don't know how to make those bookmarks or generate them.
now, of course, the advantage of PDFs is just doing that regular find. So I just go chapter two.
Yeah, I mean, when these are done as laid out books, they will definitely have much. I think we'll spend more time on that sort of thing. But when they were just Word files cobbled together for this, I'm not sure. It would take a lot of effort there.
So, Admiral Nelson, what are you not finding? Are you not finding the chapters? The easiest way I think to find the chapters was to like type in O2 and you
Yeah, I
go.
think you have to use the search for that kind of thing.
That's even worse. Huh. So you also note that you can expand and collapse each of these sections. So if you don't want the full thing, just collapse it and then start looking at the area that you know you want. You want to look in occult, now you've got occult, and you don't have to look at everything else. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a million things in occult, but at least you're not looking at everything else along the way.
I mean, he's talking about perks and capabilities, so yeah, it'd be nice to have a really a short chart of those with a very short description. But I'll see if we can get that once everything's all laid out. We'll see what we can do about
And of
providing those
course, I
sorts
mean,
of
one of the great
tools.
things about having
Short.
these PDFs, Admiral Nelson, pull out the perks, separate them out, grab those pages, make a whole new PDF of just perks. This is actually what I did when I was creating characters. I had different little sections for each one, and I would kind of do some of these um, conveyor belt style, where I'd work on the perks for everybody, work on capabilities for everybody, that kind of thing at times. So pull those out into their own documents. You can move this however you want it. Take advantage of it. Okay, going back to our ugly mugs.
All right, I'm going to continue with the question. Admiral's other question about any recommendations for GMs on how to convey the role which faith plays in the Fading Suns universe, especially to non religious or maybe even atheist players who might be quick to dismiss in game religion and be tempted to focus on space opera aspects only. Uh, the only thing, I mean, it's keeping in mind it's a medieval style world and people think medievally in that sense. So that they're constantly going to be thinking in terms of the church and the pan creator and faith and providence, and things don't just occur randomly, they occur through some sort of grace or actions of sin and so on and so forth. So it's really kind of a metaphysical or epistemological hat you got to put on as a game master. And if you have the NPCs drop these constant terms and words and speak like that, the players can help sort of, I think, it'll sink into them too. Now, that's not to say you can't have players who are effectively, more atheistic and don't take that stuff kind of seriously. There are lots of them among the guilds. There are even some among the priesthood and some of the nobles too. So you can certainly even play up that the fact that a lot of your troop might be apostates or at least heterodox and not fitting in exactly with the way everybody thinks of stuff.
And
You don't
remember,
want to play faith just as a social convention because it really is a lens through which you look at things that happen that are really good or bad. So when you roll a critical hit, it's not just probability. I mean, some guild guy or some engineer, cyborg might spit out, now that was a probable 0.008, chance or whatever. But everybody else is generally going to feel that is the actions of the Pancreator and the Empyrean intelligences guiding your hand, and so on and so forth. And it might well be. That's the one thing in Fading Sun. You can't say for sure that all these actions of theurgy or faith or whatever aren't being compelled through some intelligence somewhere. Now, whether that's just some, alien somewhere who's super powerful, who knows? But it certainly does seem to have some consciousness behind it and not just be the workings of raw matter in a billiard ball kind of universe.
and the analogy I've always used is imagine if the only book you've ever had was the Bible. Not only that, it's the only newspaper, TV show, radio show. It's the only everything you've ever had to reference the world other than your five senses. So everything your senses bring in is through that lens of that holy book. That's the only reference you have to the world. You don't have Plutarch. You don't have Aristotle. You don't have anything but that one holy book. Everything you think is referenced in terms of that holy book. It is the only frame of reference you have other than your senses. So that is what 90% of the people in the Fading Suns, even at this point into the Empire, have to reference the universe. Yeah, bards come through and sing, but even that is seen through the lens of that book, those preachers, etc. And that's why these variances between the sects matter, because how the Avestites interpret it compared to how the Almatheans interpret the Omega Gospels makes a difference on how all the people on those planets view reality itself. So just always have fun with that. Any other concept is not only alien, which is what we're going to deal with today, it doesn't compute to 90% of humanity if it's not in those Omega Gospels or explained to them through church.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
Padre. Hey, Padre. Padre 0875 says, getting your mind around the fact that not everyone thinks the same way as you do. They all think the same way as they all think. You're the weirdo. Because you've read Aristotle, Plutarch, whatever.
Yep. Okay, here's another one from Matthew. What advice would you give to describe landscapes, especially urban ones in FS? Biz 2 had a number of very useful sections of architectural material. Is there anything else you would recommend? Ooh, wow. Because they vary so much. I mean, when you're talking about the cosmopolitan worlds like Biz 2 or Criticorum or Leagueheim, of course, you're definitely much more into that very crowded sci-fi, high-tech kind of world. You're touching on, Coruscant and Star Wars prequels, that kind of thing. And that's incredibly different from, say, Pandemonium or even, just most places on, say, Bannockburn or whatever. So you've got a whole range. And again, you think of, fantasy landscapes. Are you out in the rural areas where the serfs are working and there might be a castle there? Or are you closer into the towns where they might have some old Second Republic architecture still standing that they've repurposed for stuff, or the local reeve has taken over to be his high-class apartments or whatever, and so on. So really, it just comes down to what sci-fi tropes are you playing with in your game, in a sense. Are you playing in those urban landscapes where there's monorails and flitters and skimmers shooting past? Or is it all just beast carts?
Hey, Bubaste BR, thanks for joining us. Sorry you're hearing Bill's voice for the first time. I think, something might be with my Scarlet. I've got an audio box that I do my audio feed through. It might be true that folks are only hearing me in their left or right. I'd be curious if other folks are having that experience, if y'all are using headsets. But let me know if having the mic directly to my mouth helps as opposed to over here on my mic stand.
You lefty. All right. One final question. In the same vein, how do you describe population? For instance, are humans in FS colorblind since we are in 5,000 to 5020 and populations of different races have been mixing for 3,000 years? So you would say that characters appear as of Arabic descent, or you would say that tan skin is reminiscent of all Malik worlds and those who have visited them. In other words, how do you make cultural references? Um, I try to show this in the art, but not as much in the text because it varies a lot. And as you say, in 3,000 years, humanity has mixed so much, you simply cannot pin a particular skin color and a particular hairstyle to a particular place or person necessarily, especially when you're getting up into the levels of the nobles and the guilds, the people who've had more interstellar interactions in their families and stuff. They're just such a mix. So no, you cannot look at a Hawkwood and say, oh, they're all going to be Caucasian or something. No, they're a huge mix. They're all over the place. Same for every single house. Even though they may have originated once upon a time in cultures and ethnicities that we recognize today as more earthbound, as soon as you're spreading out into the diaspora, that all starts to change and mix. And certainly by the time you're getting into the present year of the campaign, it's just so mixed. It's just not something people think of or call out. So, when you're seeing someone with white skin or black skin or red skin, whatever it is, you're not necessarily going to say, oh, that's, Al Malik, or that's, whatever. You can't even necessarily say, oh, that's someone from Malignatius. You might be able to, in very rural, insular areas that don't mix a lot, be able to say, oh, that's from the northern continent on Malignatius or whatever in that particular enclave. Those people tend to be that way and have been for some time. But overall, it's tough to call that sort of thing. And that's it for the questions we've had.
And I don't appreciate the left-handed path references. I use a right hand to write with, just like all good people.
Don't believe him.
All right. Well, wow. I didn't expect Q&A to be 47 minutes of the...
Wow, yeah, that ate up a lot of time. We might have to reserve aliens for next time. We might even have art for them next time. Who knows? That would be cool.
The aliens. Man, I was looking forward to digging into what makes someone alien, pulling out our wonderful Vorox, our Oban, and Ukar. I gotta say, I think that there's many, certainly back in 2nd edition, it seemed like we had as many PCs who are Oban and Ukar as were human in the games I'd run. Not as many as Scorbites and Hieronym, but give it time. Where's the Ganok book, Bill? That was what my final point was going to be of the aliens discussion.
There is a Ganok on the cover of the faction book. And you get his stats in the book, too. He's a private eye for the Town Criers Guild.
We also have that most sinister race, humans!
Worst of all.
Admiral Nelson says he has time. Who dictated the show to be only 1 hour? Unfortunately, I did, because I have another stream at 7 p.m.
Oh, Chainsaw Gothic asked a great question about plans for online conventions. Ulysses is putting on a convention coming right up soon in July. Let me bring up my calendar and see if I put it on my calendar yet. I don't think I did. I think it's the 24th through the 26th.
Ulysses International, can you share the link?
I will dig it up and share it. Let's see, I had it up earlier. But yes, Ulysses has an online convention, and there will be Fading Suns things going on there. Let me find that link. I go through so many links in a day. Pulling it up from my history is a little tough here. Let's see.
There it goes. Thank you, Ulysses International.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Robert. So yeah, definitely, guys, look into that. Set it aside on your calendars, because we will definitely be doing some Fading Sun stuff there. I'm not sure how much. It's going to be an interesting convention because it will be kind of rolling around the world. There will be the the German office will be doing material, and then they'll hand it off to us as the time zone comes around. So the North American team will be doing stuff, and then it'll get back to the Germans, and so on and so forth. So this thing's going to be fun.
Yeah, I ran our online convention, SimFest, for the Georgia Game Developers Association on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of great presentations on some bizarre mixed reality, virtual reality, music, game structures, etc. And that's actually what I've got going on at 7. I leave this live stream to do a roller of that. We had too much content for the one day, so we've got 2 more presentations today. One on player motivations and the other on a really interesting look at level design. So if you're interested in those kind of topics, join us in the Georgia Game Devs YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Eastern. So essentially in another hour and 10 minutes from now. So that's why we can't go on too long here. Hey, we got a GM volunteer, Bill.
Hey, awesome. Hey, let's see. What I will try to do is come up with who you need to contact or email on that stuff, and we'll mention it again next Heretical Musings. But we'll also try to spread that info out on Facebook and elsewhere once I know it too. So, but yeah, thanks for volunteering. We might well need you.
Yeah, maybe get Bill up to Draconis for a guest, or maybe me in Montreal.
If physical conventions ever occur again.
You get to go to Montreal in summer, Bill. A little.
Any plans for Origins or Gen Con Online? I do not know yet. If I know, I'll certainly let folks know, but I don't know what we're going to be doing with those.
Maybe Ulysses International can share.
Oh, there we go. Contact at ulysses-spiel.com. It's up there. So yeah, send an email there and tell them you want to volunteer. That'd be great.
Horatio, I must have been thinking of another Montreal show. What's the Montreal? There's a summer game show in Montreal, or at least there used to be. I might be thinking of like a decade plus ago.
I would love to go up to Montreal. I've been there years and years and years ago. It's a really nice place.
Okay.
Had a really nice cathedral up there.
Oops. I'm being called by the Princess Aurora.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, Princess. The princess is summoning me to dinner, actually. I'll be up in 5 minutes, Princess Aurora.
Get to live with Princess Aurora.
She was giving me more input on her character earlier today, so yeah, looking forward to that character developing and becoming more dangerous every day, unfortunately.
Oh, they had Phil up there back in 96 or 97. I'm sorry. Haha. No, just joking. Phil's great. Man. I gotta get Phil in on something at some point.
Hey, Babasti, glad to be on that page. Thanks for having gotten that going. Yeah, we were a bit late to the Facebook game, I have to admit. I don't think I really wanted to spend any time on it until 2008, and now many people are regretting spending time on it, but very much appreciate you having set that up.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Princess Aurora, do you want to say hi to everybody? Yes? You're not in your full princess regalia today. What happened?
A little undressed.
Hey. Hi, Sage.
You can see what you look like over there, see? So, Princess Aurora has joined the conversation. Chainsaw Gothic has waved to you. Bubasti BR has waved at you. Phantom of Truth plays the game. She's defining it more than we are. Yes, one of our friends, Phantom of Truth, asked, you got to wave to the camera up there, remember? Has asked if you are playing the game, and I said, you're doing more than playing the game. So, yep. She is, yep, Princess Aurora is definitely turning into a more dangerous character than I'd expected in the universe. So.
Yep, I am.
Good thing you didn't come down with your magic wand. That could have been extra dangerous.
Okay! I'm going to and get my magic wand!
Sorry about the interruption, but...
Going to get her rune stave, do some rune casting.
Yep, she is a descendant of the Voldrak. So, it will be an interesting mix of backgrounds.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything problematic with the Emperor's genes. Nonsense. All of those stories about him actually being a clone or having been the subject of genetic manipulation. Nonsense. Nonsense. I can say unadulterated lies. So.
Sure.
I am sure that that the priest, when they blessed the wedding, made sure that the Empress's genetics and his meshed perfectly and wouldn't create any bizarre abnormalities or freakish constructs, and especially no psychic powers. So
There's a rumor that Alexius has nanites in his blood, that anybody who tries to take a genetic sample, it degrades once it's out of his body. So no one can get his DNA.
nonsense. His blood's as pure as the snow in Buffalo.
All right, well, we got 4 minutes left on this.
There's a question about the LARP rules. I was taking another look through Passion Play, and it's still pretty usable. If you have, I'm looking forward to that updating for this edition. But if you just want to jump into the LARPing, those Passion Play rules are still pretty effective.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, that's something, man. If we were doing in-person conventions this summer, I'd be looking forward to a really fun Passion Play drama at Dragon Con. But
yeah.
uh-oh.
Thrasher ran a LARP last Dragon Fading Suns LARP.
All right, do you want to make the live stream disappear, Princess Aurora?
You'll see what I'm going to do. Now, don't look. Dad can't see this. Light change to darkness.
You gotta hold it in front of the camera, remember? There you go. I can't look at that. It sparks migraines.
Fall, sun rise up. As the moon goes down and down, the moon and the night are circles around, while the sun is also. Sun, please rise up and go stronger. Moon, go down and get less stronger. Oh, oh, oh. Go round and around and stop.
And stop. Now you know how rune magic works, and that's the end of the live stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.